Hey guys, it's Ross Scotton on the Space Couch. Today we're joined by the Emperor's High Command because we're going to be reviewing this. No spoilers, it was awesome. Of course it was. These two are brilliant, separately and together. So it's set in two timelines. There's the now, which is between season 3 and 4 of Rebels after the escape from Atolon, because that gets mentioned a few times to his detriment. And it's set in the past, in the closing date of the Clone War. So basically, in the past, Padme has gone out to this planet Batu, which is the one that's going to be Galaxy's Edge, because there's something going on there. So she's following up with a lead, an informant, one of her handmaidens, but she has been killed, that handmaiden. So then Padme's kind of a little bit on the run, trying to figure out what is going on. And of course, once Anakin realises that Padme is missing, he's straight in there after him. When he arrives at Batu, there's an alien ship of unknown design in orbit. And after some discussions of like, who are you, what are you doing here, all that sort of thing, and Anakin mispronouncing his full name several times, he says, Mithra Nuodo, and Anakin repeats it. He goes, no, Mithra Nuodo, and Anakin repeats it, no, just call me by my core name, Thrawn. So they team up to find out what is going on that planet. And basically, there's a separatist factory headed up by a count from Sereno, a duke from Sereno. Not Count Dooku, but one of the other nobles of that planet. And they find out basically that what's happening on that planet is they're using cortosis, which I always thought was more of a metal, but in this book it's described more as like a fibrous matter, almost like plant-like. And they're using that to build super battle droid armour and clone armour. And obviously with cortosis, and it mentions this in the book, when you hit it, the lightsaber blade just fizzles out, and it is much, much stronger against normal blaster shots as well. Because of all of the strands that are in cortosis, it dissipates all of the energy. So they have to figure out a way of destroying that factory. And obviously, Padme has gone missing by this point, although she's not really in any danger, but Anakin and Thrawn are teaming up to try and find, because Thrawn has got his own worries about what is going on. He's sent by his people to monitor what's going on in the Republic as it then is, to see if they're a threat to his people, because obviously there are other threats in the unknown regions that the Chiss know about that no one else does. In the present, the Emperor has sensed a disturbance in the Force on that same planet where the two of them went. So he summons them and tells them they have to work together to go and find out what's going on. As the book says, it's time for Thrawn to face his future and for Vader to face his past. Now, neither of them's particularly happy about it, but I mean, it's the Emperor's word, they can't do anything about it. And they don't really trust each other. I mean, they have got some, I guess, grudging respect for the other's abilities, but they don't know the full extent of that other's abilities, really. So they go to Batu. They try to get to Batu, but they can't. There's a planet called Mokivj, I think it's called, that was also part of the first storyline. But this time, several things going on. There's an alien race is infiltrating this planet called the Grisk. And basically what they are a realistic Yuuzhan Vong. They share a lot of the same characteristics about nomadic, invading, all that sort of thing, cultural appropriation, having other races bend to their will. And Thrawn is worried that they are going to be doing the same to the Chiss, and may already, in fact, have started doing so. They're also stealing moons from that planet Mokivj. It's got 10 moons, 4 of them have been stolen, I guess by use of giant gravity projectors, ripped out of orbit, and then just sent into space for eternity, where it's just going to disrupt all the hyperspace travel lanes for centuries and centuries and centuries because of the mass shadow that it produces. So that was all very interesting. But also, the disturbance in the Force is something that Grand Admiral Thrawn knows all about, kind of, because it turns out the Chiss, they do have Force sensitives amongst them, but only in children, and it fades the older they get, and it's almost always only in girls. Almost always only in girls. It's very strongly hinted that Thrawn himself was Force sensitive as a child, but it only shows in one manner, and that is in precognition. So the Chiss use them as pilots because they don't really have the same sort of hyperspace technology that the Republic and the Empire have. They use Force sensitives to try and navigate through the Starlands. And so basically, it turns out there's a bunch of these Chiss girls, I think there's about 8 of them, have been kidnapped by the Grysk, and Thrawn wants them back. The Chiss want them back. The Emperor wants to know what the disturbance was. So those are the basic outlines of the 2 storylines, and they're both equally interesting, as is the parts with Padme. You can just imagine it's Natalie Portman in there. It's brilliant. But of course, the big question is, these 2 working together twice across the decades, do you think Thrawn's figured out who Lord Vader is, or was? No prizes for guessing. He does indeed figure that out, but he doesn't really say, "You're Anakin Skywalker." He references times when him and Anakin were on that planet of Mokiv, saying, "Do you recall when we attacked the factory?" And he said, "When you attacked the factory, no one else on the Chimera has ever been to this world before." Yeah. And oh, by the way, the Chiss girls, who are Force-sensitive pilots, they're known, the translation of their term is called Skywalker. So they're all known as Skywalkers. So when he first meets Anakin Skywalker, he's a little bit thrown off. It's like, what? So that was just a nice little thing that was thrown in there. And when Anakin Skywalker is mentioned in conversation, Vader says he's dead. And Thrawn will always say something like, "So I've heard," or "That's what I've been told." Not saying, yes, he's dead. But anyway, of course, Thrawn knows who he is. And he really figures it out, because I think the other times was just slightly probing, when he sees Vader in combat, in one of his TIE Defenders, by the way, which Vader really likes those ships, and says, "It is he," so it's like, yeah, he knows who he is, and everything. But it's interesting towards the end where it's like he mentions this about the Skywalker term and how he was thrown off when he first met General Anakin Skywalker, and Vader mentions Anakin Skywalker is dead, and it's towards the end of the novel, and he says, "Yes, I know." Not "so I've heard" or "that's what I've been told," but "I know." And then Vader says, "We will not speak of this again. You will not speak of this again." So it's like, he knows that he knows. But I mean, over the course of the 2 storylines, they have both got an respect for the other's abilities, both as Anakin and as Lord Vader. And it's very interesting when it's in the Vader timeline, and he's thinking back to Anakin's memories. It's always the Jedi. The Jedi had been here before, but it's capital T, capital J, always just the Jedi. So that was fascinating. And also it gives us an insight into, in both timelines, how he deflects things, like blaster bolts with the lightsaber. He has a form of precognition himself, and most Jedi do, of course, that allows him to see where the bolts are going and how to deflect them. So yes, fantastic book. Absolutely loved it. I do believe there is a 3rd one in the sequence, because it is fully left open for that. You don't just get rid of Grand Admiral Thrawn, I mean, well, they're doing Rebels, but no, his storyline continues for now, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Don't know yet if I liked it more than the first one. The first one, it was the Thrawn origin story that was absolutely fascinating. This one, he is established. It was terrific. It's great to see the 2 of these together in both their iterations. It was interesting, the timelines, that it both worked. Anakin and Thrawn, then Vader and Thrawn. And there's certain lines of dialogue that are repeated in both of them. For instance, when Thrawn and Anakin first go to the planet, Thrawn is in his Chiss Expansionary Defense Force uniform. And I think Anakin says something like, "They won't know what that uniform is. They may not recognise my uniform, but they will recognise it as a uniform." And that is also kind of flipped in the second timeline, where it said, "We should not wear a uniform. They may not recognise it, but they will recognise it to be a uniform." And there's another one where they're in a bar and they're getting approached by all the local toughs to beat them up or whatever. And Thrawn says, "The warrior's path lies before us. Let us see what guidance it holds." And there's a repeat, slightly different, of that line in the Vader and Thrawn storyline. And there's also, because Thrawn is always asking for trust, because he figures things out like that, but it's like explaining how he's gotten to that is very difficult for other people to comprehend. So he's asking for trust from Vader in the second storyline. But in the first storyline, Anakin is asking him to trust him. So it's very interesting. Like I said, the two storylines work very, very well together. And it does leave it open for his adventures to continue. And also this race called the Grisks, who, like I say, that seems to be a more realistic version of the Yuuzhan Vong, with the use of giant planets as weapons, that sort of thing, but not the whole anti-force sensitivity thing that the Yuuzhan Vong had, that sort of thing. But yes, thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was absolutely fantastic. I read most of it yesterday, from the morning through till about 11:30 at night in bed. I was just ploughing through it. It's one of those ones you just cannot put it down. Both those characters are that good. And it was great to see, like I say, Padme again, and R2 is in it as well, and obviously the Emperors here and there. And the TIE Defender and Lothal and Kathan Jarrus and Atollon and the Bendu, they all get little shout-outs, which is very nice. It's a very good tie-up of various parts of the canon. And I don't know what the third one would be. The third book is Thrawn. Who knows? Maybe that would be what happens to him in the wild space. Who knows? I don't know. That story will get told, him and Ezra, sooner or later. But yes, that is just my review of this. Thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly recommended. Anything by Timothy Zahn, anything with Thrawn, anything with Vader. Put those three together and you've won the lottery. Yes, great book. This might actually now be my favourite Star Wars canon novel. I shall have to have a think about that, and maybe do a new top 10 Star Wars canon novel update, as there's been so many more of them out now. But for now, guys, that was just my thoughts on Timothy Zahn's Thrawn Alliances. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this content. Leave me a comment or a suggestion for upcoming topic you'd like to see discussed, or like the video.